So, Luka Doncic was never supposed to be here. Now you can take that one or two ways. We can go with something that has been a major topic in the media this season, and that's the trade to the Lakers from the Dallas Mavericks. Or we can take the route of him being this out of shape, no defensive effort, unathletic guy who, despite all of that, is still knocking at the door of being an all-time great. Now we all have seen the times where Luka just gets scored on with ease and allows defensive breakdowns time and time again, so that isn't something we can just write off and not talk about. But it's on plays like this where enjoyers of the sport we call basketball really find joy in watching him on the floor. When Luka first attacks off the screen, it's no longer his man that he's worried about, as he now trails the play. Doncic is now focused on what the help defender is going to do, and most importantly, he's reading the floor to see what the two bottom defenders will do, which happens to be Steph and Pods. Now the reason he's watching them is because whatever move they make starts the domino effect. If Steph helps off, well, Luka could easily send it over to the corner, but in basketball, we all know that the strong side corner isn't the one to commit to helping, so that's why Luka is more focused on what Pods is going to do. When looking at the floor, you can see that Brandon shifted over to help out on a drive, and this now makes Draymond have to cover both players on the outside. So with Luka always staying 2 steps ahead, he understands that if he telegraphs this pass, then Draymond would easily be able to pick it off. So he looks at the top of the key to make Draymond lunge that way, and with a pass to the corner, this one right here is straight cash. Trust me, it's not only the way he passes the ball that gets people to admire his game, as when he gets pressured, he doesn't fold under it. He truly just gets deeper in his bag to make his way to spots on the floor to convert tough buckets like this one. And when he's just in the zone like this, he becomes one of the most unguardable players in the NBA.
Hand in his face, nails the three-pointer.
Yeah, it's quite hard to ignore how great of a player he actually is, even if we are to bring up his negatives. His almost Rockets James Harden playstyle is similar enough for most to pick up on, but with his own little flavor and season added in, it's more like Luka is rewiring a new prototype. It used to be a time where everyone thought you had to be super fast, jump extremely high, move quick, or just something that would give you an athletic advantage on opponents. Well, as we've seen from notable guys like Luka Doncic and Nikola Jokic, that couldn't be farther from the truth in today's game. Luka isn't this guy who's going to zoom down the court in a blur, and he also won't rise up over the top defenders to put them on a poster. But what he will do is show you the art within the game of basketball and sit you down for many different lessons. So as we highlighted earlier, Doncic can score from many different areas on the floor, which makes him one of the most difficult players to figure out. When we look at a breakdown of his top 3 scoring areas as far as distance, you can see that it starts with his ability to score within 8 feet with a conversion rate of 63.7% with 259 shots taken. Second is 8 to 16 feet at a 45% rate with 218 shots. And coming in at number 3 is his ability to connect on shots from 24 plus feet out, reining these in at a 37% clip on 478 shots. Some might think these numbers are great, and then there's some that will look right past it, but when we break down the film and see how he picks apart the defense, this is where things become undeniable. In today's game, with the court being so spaced out, it's a massive advantage for the offense to set these screens up high, especially if the ball is in the hands of a high-level player. This here gives the ball handler plenty of momentum to get started downhill, and if the screen makes solid contact, it's going to be this defender right here to pick up on Luka, who will now be trying to slide his feet to get out in front. This here makes the defender be extremely vulnerable to any move the offensive player does, because here as Randle is trying to beat him to the spot, Doncic has already located a gap in the offense to attack, so with a sharp change of direction with the through the legs crossover, we can all see that Randle has been shifted. Doncic now has a clean angle to the rim, and after a slight hezzy, he's flying in to grab 2 points. That quick change and reaction timing is key in today's game, as it allows you to exploit any holes in the defense before they're even aware, and by the time they can even react, it's simply too late. I understand that Doncic isn't some guy who has those lethal herky-jerky shifts like a Darius Garland, but his ability to plant hard and then shift his momentum to go back the other way is what gives him a much needed step on the defender, and with his 6'8" stature, he can still finish inside over guys with no problem. For every great player, they must have a counter for if the defense plays them correctly, and on this attack versus Pelicans, you can see that there's multiple defenders around Doncic, which will make it way harder to score. But hold on, if we direct our attention to the backside, Vando is cutting on the baseline, and if you're playing with a guy like Luka, all you have to do is move and he'll get it right to you. The passing is one way to counter defenses, but for another way, Luka will just get crafty with his handle like Burger King to have it his way. When pushing at Siakam, it may not seem like a lot, but when this front foot gets up high on the crossover, this is when the trouble happens. As now Luka can attack that lead foot going towards the right, and with Siakam trying to recover, he assumes Luka is going to go straight up, but instead it's a decel that totally catches him off guard. This ability to use that handle to hunt instead of just dance is what separates Luka. Every move is calculated to set up the next, and with such poise when he gets to his spot, he's never really worried as long as the basket is in his sights. Like, take this play for an example. We first see Luka use the handle to get into his groove, but right here is where the setup happens. With Luka seeing the help defender loaded up at the elbow, he knows attacking left wouldn't be smart, and that attacking down this right side is far more open. Now, to make things much easier, he has to get that step on the defender towards the rack. So this is why we see him cross over like he's going left to then be able to attack that lead foot we talked about earlier. And when arriving at the rim, as long as he can locate the basket, the contact or coverage really doesn't do much as Luka is fully locked in. When we talk about handling the ball, it needs to be used for the greater good. Whether it's you bringing a slower footed big out to then take him to the rack with ease, or you utilize it to gain a massive amount of space before pulling up, no matter which one you pick, it needs to be about getting to your desired spot on the floor. Doncic is one of these players that can be tricky to defend when he's attacking your paint possession after possession because his craftiness truly has no limits. In the most simplest form, Luka will attack right at the defender who stands in his way getting to the rim, but if you look closely, you'll notice that he used that left arm to get into the defender's lead arm. This here creates the contact that makes the ref think the defender is impeding the offensive player's space, and with Luka deciding to get right into a shot once him and the defender are tangled up, this is where you get those and-one opportunities. I understand that some of you may hate it, and that's why you don't like SGA either, but this is truly a skill set in basketball. You want to be able to bait any defender who comes your way into doing something that puts them at a disadvantage, and then at that point, it's all up to you to swing things in your favor. As Doncic pushes at VanVleet here, Luka can easily take it right to the basket at Sengun as he has Fred beat, but one that would make for a difficult conversion over Sengun with him possibly missing without getting a foul call, so Doncic instead slows it down to wait for Fred to get back on his hip, and with a slight gathering to the body of VanVleet, this little contact was enough to make the ref blow the whistle for the and one. These simple yet effective ways Luka will use the defender's positioning against themselves opens up his downhill game even more, as now with defenders being wary of making contact, this allows Luka to move more free when attacking, and boy oh boy does he take advantage of this. When he turns the corner here versus Ant, the pressure isn't very aggressive on Ant's side due to him not wanting to foul. And honestly, this makes sense, but only if Julius Randle was to close the gap a little quicker, because now Doncic can slice right through this gap to get to the rim. Defenders will at times close up on him, but in one quick move, the space has now been granted. Just like earlier how we discussed every dribble being a setup, well with the space to operate, Luka initiates the setup by faking the drive left to then spin off going right abruptly, and to add some flair to it, Doncic fakes out Londo with a pass fake to then drop in the floater over the top. I know it may seem like common sense to take away that space by getting up tight on Doncic, but here's the thing, Luka is a bigger guy who understands how to use his weight to shield off defenders, and he also understands how to change pace like the best of them. So when Crafty gets up high like this, it actually puts him at a worse position as Luka just pushes right past him, and although the help defender is right there, sometimes it's just that Luka magic that gets activated. This scoring inside is what jumpstarts Luka's game as a scorer since it makes the defenders have to be aware of the drive, and if he ever needs to stop short to catch guys slipping, then he can use that floater where he has quite a soft touch. You'll have these times where he can't continue all the way to the basket due to the help defender waiting in perfect position, so getting physical with his defender to create separation and float it over the top is the best option on this play. Certain actions we see could almost be an offensive foul due to Luka trying to get free for a clean look, but for the most part, he's good at getting into the defender's body without using the off arm to shove them, and with a little bit of selling, he gets awarded another one at the line. For any guard or player that loves to get downhill, the floater might just be the most important piece to the puzzle, because there will be endless opportunities for Luka to attack the lane like we see here, but now it's not about if he can get in the paint, it's all about how far he can go. And with the Pelicans having multiple defenders building a wall near the rim, Luka doesn't shy away from the contact as he instead absorbs it, and once again, we have an and one underway. Now there are different ways Luka can defeat defenders trying to cut off his penetration, such as using a low carry through the traffic to then place this one perfectly off the glass. He can see that the left side will lead to a tough position to try and go finish, so instead he'll spin away from the crowd going right to then use his height to elevate over the top of the defender. And then when we combine every small detail I've covered, that's when you'll see Luka first avoid the double by not going left where Wiggins is located, and instead spins off Curry down the empty side. Second, he'll use his body and positioning to get into Curry before gathering into a float, and third, we see him use that height and length to release this at the apex of his floater to nail this one over both of them. This option to stop short of the rim gives Luka another go-to move for when defenders think they take away his driving game, and hey, let's say they do a good job of not allowing him to get close enough to feel comfortable with a floater, well the mid-range is an area where we can see Luka explore his bag a little deeper. Now when looking at the numbers and seeing Luka shoot about 39% from the mid-range isn't something that's going to make you break your neck at all, but with his confidence to utilize it at any time and his ability to operate in space, it still makes defenders struggle with containing him night in and night out. With Doncic being a player who loves to use a step back to get into a jumper from deep, which we will touch on soon, that exact skill set will transfer right into his mid-range creation, because with defenders worried about Luka pulling up from behind the line, you'll see them lunge out when he creates space to potentially get a shot up. So at this time, Luka can now attack the closeout, and even though the defender plays solid defense to stay right with him, Doncic simply just needed to get to a spot, and this one right here is pure money. Just as that 3-ball was a threat to make defenders bite, well, Luka's driving game influences defenders also. With him rejecting this ghost screen to attack the basket, this puts Trey at a disadvantage since he tries to get up high to avoid the screen, and this right here is truly a terrible position to be in. You now have put the keys in Luka's hands, giving him the opportunity to pull that E-break whenever he chooses, and then he'll throw it in reverse to create the distance needed. It's understandable that you want to stop any further push to the basket, but against a good player, you would much rather want to stop them before they can even get any momentum with the handle. Now I know, that's much easier said than done, because even when defenders don't get totally beat off the dribble and play solid defense, he'll just show them he has a trick up his sleeve to add 2 more points to the board. A lot of the time, due to the nature of the game, you'll see defenders more so on the hip of Doncic rather than him being totally beat downhill, which doesn't seem that bad because it gives them solid coverage on Luka making any move. But this is where things get tricky. With many counters ready to be served, Doncic chooses to stay patient and use that pivot to create space in a sort of creative way, and bada bing, it's money team. For a bunch of guys in the league, they need a lot of space to get their shot off comfortably, but this is exactly why Luka is one of the premier players in the NBA. He doesn't need to rely on stepping back to create tons of space when defenders are chasing him as the only way to hit shots. It's truly about him navigating to his desired spot on the floor, and hey, the rest is history. Like versus Karl-Anthony Towns on this possession, Luka doesn't create much space with the handle from Towns, nor does he beat him off the dribble towards the rim. Instead, he just uses the handle to get right to his hot zone on the floor, and with no worries, he drains it right over Cat. Trust me, it's not easy to knock down these shots that Luka is taking, and furthermore, it takes a lot of poise and years of footwork to stay centered all the way into the pull-up off the pivot to then sink it right over the hand of your defender. That right there, ladies and gentlemen, is what we call pure work. When he's on the floor, there's honestly not a shot he doesn't like. It's only about if he likes the spot that he's in, and if you don't believe me, well, ask Chris Dunn. Oh, you still think it's a one-off thing? Well, how about you ask Wiggins, who was victim to this slight bump into a fade over the top? Ah, I see, you still want another example. Well, I got you. How about we call up Cason Wallace, who just got put in a spin cycle directly into a ballroom shakedown, to then watch it drop through the basket in his face. Yeah, there's many players we can call up to ask how it felt when good defense met better offense, but I'll save that for another video. This here shows you that Luka is not only a guy capable of making shots in this range, as he's also able to make extremely tough shots no matter the coverage. Now, would we like to see Luka create better looks and take more open shots? Of course, and in due time, I'm sure he will. But already showing that he can make difficult buckets is a great sign for when he needs to knock down clutch shots or score when defenders already scheme against him tightly. Every time he sees one fall in the basket, it gives him a confidence boost to destroy you even further out. And here's where the parade comes to town.
Doncic, step back 3, it's good! 19 points for Doncic.
Now let's be honest, we all know that when we see Luka get into that signature combo to then step back for 3, we all assume it's going in for straight money. And shots like this just make you shake your head in disbelief. Like, it's one thing to catch and let it fly from distance to connect, but when you can hit a tween step back on an elite defender for an and one, this is when you know you're built different. Just like every skill set we talked about, everything builds on each other. Such as here, you can see Watson continuing to backpedal to give himself space to combat the drive, but boy oh boy is the joke on you, because this much space is way too much for a guy like Doncic. When Luka's coming up the floor, it's best to get out there and take away the shot, or else he'll let it fly with no hesitation right over you. But in the same vein, I understand why some defenders will choose to stay back, because all it takes is one move for Luka to have to step on you towards the basket, and now you're allowing 2 points inside. Time and time again, you'll see Luka rise up over defenders when they get caught backtracking, giving Doncic the perfect look at the basket to knock it down. And hey, there are these times where defenders will be up on him ready to sit down and guard, but with that step back being initiated immediately on the break, Christian Braun literally stands no chance. Sometimes it can honestly look like bad shots that Luka takes when he's firing in a quick second, but just like earlier, it's not about how open he is or if the masses think it's a good shot or not, as long as Luka feels like he has daylight to get the shot off, and most importantly, he is at his desired spot on the floor, best believe it's going up. Like take these next two plays for an example. When guarded here on the sideline, Doncic isn't worried about getting to a certain spot because he's already where he wants to be. In this example, he's only worried about finding that slight amount of daylight to lock and load, so right when Wells backs off just a little bit despite the hand being there, Luka fires right over the top of him. Now for a different example, we all know that when Luka gets into his signature size up, he wants to get into a 3-point shot. So with him just simply wanting to get to his desired spot, it doesn't matter that the elite defender and Anthony Davis is right there in front of him, because once Luka pulls up in rhythm, it's quite hard to throw him off. This non-needing a space and being able to shoot from practically anywhere is what elevates Luka's creation from the outside, and with him having different moves he can feed you, it truly feels like you're at an all-you-can-eat buffet, but you're the one just watching Doncic grab play after play after play. First he'll start off with his main course, and this happens to be a step back fillet. With these ball screens being set up high like this, it always puts the defender in a state of recovery, so without having to intentionally set him up with a handle, Luka is in the perfect position to pull back on the defender due to their momentum going downhill, and with supreme focus, this one is butter. At times we'll see double screen set to give Luka even more separation and momentum to carry out any move he feels like, so even though his initial defender doesn't chase, and neither does Grady on the hedge, Luka now has a big man in Poto waiting for him when he comes off the second screen, and instead of trying to attack him head on with multiple defenders who could help, Luka chooses that step back to maintain the space between him and the defender, and once again, it's nothing but the bottom of the net. I'm not entirely sure how teams can scheme to take this away fully, as they don't want to give up a drive to the basket, but you also don't want to get froze up thinking about the drive when getting around the screen that you allow him to shoot it with no problem. And then I'll also understand that switching might seem like the best thing to do immediately to stop him from turning the corner to go score, but listen up closely my guy. You do not want a big man on him, or else this is just way too easy. He's a guy who loves to hunt for those mismatches to then destroy the big man, and hold on, don't think for 1 second he can only do it when he has a mismatch. Because even when Benedict Mathurin tries to apply that pressure and stay with Doncic, he falls victim to one of the nastiest space creating step backs and go ahead and chalk up 3 points on the board. Now with every buffet, you have the main course of your choosing that you like, and as good as it is, you may go back for seconds, but it's really those sides that fill your entire taste buds. Not every time can Luka just resort to that step back to cook defenders, as sometimes he'll use the pass fake to get the defender in the air to then pull up from 30, other times he'll chain a crossover into a step back to drill it home. And with some slight games being played, he'll use that screen to play hide and seek, and trust me, he's not getting found. When you look at a breakdown of Luka's 3-point shooting during this 2025 season, you'll see that he was pretty much equally effective off the catch as well as pull-ups, with him shooting just 1% better off the catch at 36.9%, but these do come at a much lower volume than his pull-ups from deep. I think Luka working off ball and being a spot-up shooter at times is something that can help his game tremendously, as now defenders won't be able to sleep on him no matter if he has the ball or not, but it's not exactly time to discuss that just yet. I first want to stay with the ball being in Luka's hands, and if the defense is to take away a shot on the court due to them playing solid defensively, well here's where you can pick apart your defense in a slow but grueling manner with his ability to pass the ball at an elite level. When receiving the screen near the sideline on this play, Luka decides to reject it to attack back right, and right here is where a defense can scheme perfectly to take away his shot. With Jokic and Brown right in his grill, Luka has no room to try and attempt anything, but just because you took away his scoring doesn't mean you took him out the game, because at this point, it's no longer about the person guarding him, or shall I say the double as we see here on this play. It's now about what the backside help defender does, and since MPJ slid over to cover Jackson Hayes on the roll, this now leaves LeBron open across the court for Luka to sling a pass over there, and when en route, the 40-year-old gon' figure it out. Gunning at Doncic off these screens is really one of the worst things to do when it comes to opening up his passing, as at any time the defense leaves a gap between them and the defender, and Luka is the one with the ball, all it takes is a split second for him to locate the target and get the ball in transit, so before you even know it, Hayes is slamming it home. For many guards in the league, they wouldn't be able to make some of the passes Doncic does when he gets rushed, as here a lot of guys would turn back to then send the ball back to LeBron, but with Luka staying poised in the moment, he waits just one more second for the gap to open up, and this time it's a slick bounce pass to set up the easy kiss off the glass. Some of you may say, this isn't special at all, and okay, I hear you. Well, what about here when he's shaded right into triple coverage, and instead of telegraphing the pass, Luka decides to act as if he's gathering for a look at the rim, and right now, we can see that Scotty Barnes has slid over to cover Lively on the roll due to the possibility of Doncic throwing it up, so this leaves Prosper open in that corner for Luka to blend this pass fake into a 3-ball. It really doesn't matter where the double gets initiated heavy, as there isn't a pass Luka can't make when he's in traffic, and if the help defender gets overzealous by rotating early to try and steal the pass, Luka will show everyone that they need to implement their principles by zipping this to the corner for a wide open Vandal 3-pointer. If I'm the defense, I would make sure my last option would be to double Luka so aggressively, as all this does is allow him to get his other guys going, which now lets the whole team get in rhythm opposed to just one player. And even if it's not Luka directly setting up the play himself, well, due to him being doubled initially, this has now set the defense into rotation, causing Brown to go out to Rui, leaving LeBron open in that corner, and this one here ends in a money ball. In the 2025 season, Luka dished out 7 assists per game over 50 games played, and when you look a little deeper, he dished out 13.4 potential assists with 19.3 assist points created. For this to be looked at as a down year for Luka is crazy, because most league guards in the league aren't even doing this. The way Luka can read any defensive scheme to then showcase his high level IQ puts him miles ahead of your defense when it comes to dictating the game, and this is why you must choose whether or not you're going to make him be strictly a scorer or if he's going to be a passer. But honestly, either choice is going to get you ate alive. Like, you can try and come up to the level of the screen to stop him from attacking downhill with ease, but here's the thing, Doncic will locate that gap that's present to then cross up Zoo to push middle, and right here is where everything is now broken. If me and you were watching the same screen, you can see that everyone on the Clippers is locked into what Luka is doing, and this right here is a fatal mistake.
There you go.
Now, instead of attacking himself to then make the defense break down, Doncic will have these possessions where he welcomes the double by staying patient when coming off the screen, and this here does a couple things. One, it makes the defenders come out even further away from the basket, giving them a larger distance to recover when the ball is passed, and two, it opens up the floor completely for Jemison to roll into space, so with a simple bounce pass down the middle and no rim protector in the paint, this is the perfect setup for an easy conversion. I think the most seen coverage for Doncic is the blitz when he comes off the screens, simply because it's the easiest way for defenders to rush at him and potentially catch him off guard, but that's the thing with such great playmakers. You're betting on catching them off guard to force a turnover, or that your backside help will rotate in a timely manner, but if you're a step too late or don't have any solid defenders around the rim when this happens, well, good luck stopping this. These doubles can get so exaggerated that you'll see them be initiated near half court, hoping to force Luka into a tough situation, but nah. It really doesn't bother him at all, as he'll open up to the double to be able to see the entire floor, and trust me, I was not lying when I said if you leave any gaps in the defense, he'll exploit it, because once again, he sends a bounce pass right down the middle to Gafford on the roll, and 2 more points are collected. These doubles are truly risky for the biscuit, and in basketball, you must take calculated risk, not just sending a double at an elite player who can clearly see it coming, because now Luka can play a game of monkey in the middle with Dwight Powell. With Rui and Austin Reeves open on the outside, Powell now has to guess which way Luka is going to send the pass and hope he guesses right, but we all know that's probably the hardest thing to do at times, as Doncic looks one way to then set up a 3-pointer in the corner instead for Hachimura. I get it, I understand you want to double high, but now you give up a zip down low, and other times you might want to keep the double as he pushes left, but now he can just sling it right. Yeah, I know, it's like the defense has to pick their poison when they're out there, because when you have someone whose mind to muscle connection works faster than 90% of players on the court, this is why you'll never be able to stay a step ahead of them to knock them off their game even a little bit. Sure, the doubles up high can be effective in many ways, and at times can be used to take players out the game completely, but that's certainly not the case here. After teams realize that the double isn't working in their favor like they thought, here's where Luka will start beating defenders off the dribble himself to then make the help gravitate towards him, and hey, what goes up must come down.
Good lob.
I know this could blend into him getting doubled, but it's more about him attacking to certain spots, which then makes the defense shift towards him to hopefully stop anything going to the basket, and yeah, it may get the ball out of his hands, but now you're watching a 3 get fired and buried. With players being so worried about allowing Luka to beat him off a screen, you'll see them lunge out to close the distance so they can stay attached if Luka is to use the pick and roll, but now they made themselves vulnerable to a blow by from Doncic, allowing him to get 2 feet in the paint, and as we can see, Brown is stepping up to take away Luka, which makes Hawkins have to dive down low to be ready for a pass to Vando, so now Luka can act as if he's going to lob it up to make the defense fully commit, but in reality, it was all a setup to hit Shake Milton for a 3-ball. I know some of you will say a driving kick really isn't that special, the Celtics do it all the time. Well, how many guys are able to stay calm when there's 3 defenders smothering them to then find the perfect kick out to Reeves? Also, how many guys will get this deep into the lane to then make the defense sit around looking at them to zip it all the way to the opposite corner? And although it may look simple, not many guys are blending a layup attempt around multiple defenders contest into a kick out to the opposite sideline for pure money. All of this comes from being able to not only predict what the defense will do, but also the ability to adjust in real time quicker than most people trying to stop you. When you figure out how the pieces on the chessboard move, you'll then be able to make plays that people never even saw coming, so before they can even plan a comeback, they've already lost the game. This is something we see in Luka's game on any given night. He understands where all his guys are located on the floor, so when he makes his way to the basket by launching off McDaniels, he's soon met by Anthony Edwards, who rotated over from Spencer Dinwiddie. Luka could try and go up to draw a foul or a potential and one, but with him knowing he has an open man in the corner, he chooses the fastest way to get it there without having to alter his body, and that's with an over-the-shoulder no-look pass that results in a bucket. I'm not sure what you think, but I personally believe Luka is one of the best passers the NBA has ever seen. He doesn't just always resort to the safe and easy find, as he'll deliver some of these downs with flair and difficulty, but also manages to make sure it gets to the right teammates at the right spot. It's not often you get a point guard who truly understands his other teammates' strengths and how to put them in the best position to succeed time and time again, and this right here is what Luka excels at. Sure, can some people not like the play style and the way he gets some of these assists? Yeah, and that's fair. But when you see some of the ways he can shift the defense to get exactly what he wants, that's when you start to see him in a different lens. I think offensively, his game is almost polished to the point where he can just master his skills, but I think one key thing he still needs to implement is his scoring off ball. With Luka being such a threat with the ball in his hands, it can lead to him having a higher usage rate or just being only effective when he's the one initiating the play, and that's a trap you don't want to fall into. When playing alongside Kyrie Irving, we got to see Luka play off ball sometimes while Kyrie cooked for the offense, and honestly, that is where Luka can make himself even more dangerous. His catch and shoot can all out make defenders have to stay home on him, and if he can locate gaps in the defense to then move into, he can also attack the basket to slice and dice the defense. I understand that might not be his groove, but that is something that can truly elevate his game. This one-man offense of Luka Doncic is something that people will remember to be one of the best the NBA has ever seen. And if he keeps it up, he will one day be considered one of the best offensive players ever. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you drop a like, subscribe, and turn on post notifications so you're first to know when I upload. I thank you all for your support, and I'll see you in the next video.